This is the third in the series of Mattertime, where I need to diverge a little bit because in order to describe Mattertime or any theory, you really need some kind of a view of consciousness. And before you can start on consciousness, you need emotions, because emotions are how we choose. And so first of all, I'd like to start with the 5 dimensions of emotion. So first of all, with emotions, the 5 complements of emotions. Emotions necessarily lead to a singular feeling, and it is by the singular feeling that we make choices. And choices are how consciousness comes about. Without choice, there is no consciousness. Without emotions, there is no choice. Unconscious archetypes is a term that I'll be using, and those are beliefs that we have, including emotions, that affect emotions, feelings, and therefore they affect free choice. And among the 3 issues that define consciousness are individual freedom, social responsibility, and awareness of others as well as your own potential malevolence. For example, the emotion of compassion is very important for bonding people together, and its complement selfishness is important in conflicts. These 2 emotions interact to form a lot of the bonds and complement conflicts of our society. And then other emotions come into play when pleasure, for example, pleasure that we have with the bonding interaction. Alternatively, the anxiety you might have with the conflict. Another 2 emotion complements that then lead to this excitation spectrum that shows you the inhibition and excitation and how it changes over time. So deep within the brain, the primitive brain has a set of organs, one of which, the thalamus, is particularly important for emotion. And it's linked into a network of other primitive organs, including the amygdala for choice, and the hippocampus for memory, long-term memory. These organs are extremely important as far as our behavior goes, but they don't have a lot to do with our rational mind. Decision making has to do with eliminating many of the possible outcomes that we face and reducing it to some kind of binary choice between 2 usually quite different outcomes, as this diagram shows. To complete the emotion spiral, we need several more emotion complements, 2 more emotion complements. Anger, serenity and anger, pride and shame. Now, serenity is the feeling of satisfaction that we share when things are going well. It's a little different than joy and pleasure because it's sort of the satisfaction of your own thoughts, and it sort of represents the acceptance of where you are as opposed to a bliss or happiness. On the other hand, anger is a very necessary emotion. It establishes limits that other people's behavior can give and that we can take, and it shows others those limits. And finally, 2 emotions that are very important for social interactions, pride and shame. These pride and shame really are the way that we bond into civilization with people that we do not know or barely know, as opposed to compassion, which is a generic emotion that allows us to bond to others. Our pride and especially shame is the way that civilization works to socialize people. And so finally, here is the emotion spiral, puts all 5 complements into this spiral diagram that shows how they interact, and the idea of the spiral is to give us a destination in this matrix that represents a superposition of emotions, and that leads to choice. Very center, absolute bliss, the outer of despair. Now you surmise that these 5 emotion complements really aren't necessarily unique, but they do appear to represent the vast majority of emotional responses that we might have. Things that, of course, are not included: pain, for example, which is a sensation, not really emotion, and other kinds of emotions: envy, jealousy, surprise, disgust. These are common representations of emotion, and you can represent each of these emotions as some superposition of the 5 complements. And so the 5 complements do represent nearly everything we want to feel, and feelings how we make choice. Finally, love and hate are very common and strong emotions, but they don't have a lot of utility in a complementary scheme. The reason is that the extremes of love are never undesirable, and extremes of hate are there is no hate that is desirable. Whereas an emotion complement must be able to scale, and so this set of emotion complements, you can represent love and hate as they're normally expressed in terms of some superposition of the memory complements on a scalable basis. Finally, the idea of the set of emotions is emotions really are archetypes that must be in place in order to enable consciousness. Many people talk about consciousness and they never mention emotion for reasons that aren't clear to me. Without emotion, there is no consciousness, because without emotion, there is no choice. Without choice, consciousness doesn't exist. So, once the archetypes of space and time are in place, matter and action, and the 5 emotion complements, that gives us our fundamental consciousness. And that consciousness is defined by a combination of individual freedom, social responsibility, and an awareness of the potential malevolence to which we are all subject.